All right. Hello, everybody. Looks like the room is starting to fill nicely. Thanks so much for coming out today. We're going to get started in just a few seconds. But before we do, if I can just do a quick sound check. If you can hear me, please go ahead and just let me know in that chat box over there. Jana, hello. Excellent. Ben, good. Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. I first off just wanted to say we are really excited to share this concept with you all, and I think it will be so helpful for you as well as the groups and organizations that you're involved with in learning about this new way that you can make money online while at the same time really being able to express who you are and your identity and to be able to share that with your community, both on campus as well as off. So today we're going to talk specifically about the money machine, how to use an online pop-up store to make $500 in a week for your group, club, team, or organization. And I know what you guys are thinking. Okay, right. Sounds great, but is it for real? And absolutely, yes, it is. And not only is it for real, it's actually a lot of fun as well. So by the end of our half hour together today, you are going to have a really clear idea of how this model can work for your group and what you need to do in order to be successful, as well as some of the things that you need to avoid to also be successful. But first, why are you here today? For starters, you know that there is a better way to raise money for your group. I'm sure you guys have all experienced doing other kinds of fundraisers before. You set up tables in the common area to sell t-shirts or baked goods or whatever. And so you've all done this before, but you know that there's got to be other ways that you can raise money really effectively. You're also here today, though, because you happen to be a self-motivated, organized, and action-oriented type of person. That's just simply your personality type. We already know that about you. And we also know that once you learn what to do, you're not only going to execute on that, but you're actually going to do it really, really well. All that we're here to do today is just to give you some really great ideas, as well as a blueprint for what you need to do to succeed and get started. So that being said, we do have a special challenge for you that we would like to propose to you today, but we're not going to mention it until the end of the webinar. I just want to start with a few examples of some pop-up shops that have been successful just in the last month or so. So starting with the University of Cincinnati, they have a music department that had a pop-up shop. They made over $500 in just under 2 weeks. Carnegie Mellon has a Formula One racing team, and they raised over $1,000 in about 3 weeks. And then the Boston University softball team were able to raise over $2,000 in just a week. So before I jump into all the details, I just want to give you a really quick overview of what we're going to do today. We know that you guys have a lot going on, and so we're going to try to keep the entire webinar to right about 30 minutes. And also, just so you guys know, we do prefer to hold all of the questions until the very end, but we have Michaela here, who is another one of our team members, and she'll be flagging questions as they come in. So we'll be using that time at the end of the webinar to respond. If we don't get to your question today, we'll be sure that one of our team members touches base with you within 1 business day with a direct response to your question. All right, so here's our agenda. We're going to start with some quick introductions, and then we're going to jump right in and talk about pop-up stores. Why are they effective? How this business strategy can be taken online for a really powerful effect. Then we're going to talk about how to be successful in setting up those online pop-up stores. We're going to talk about why this matters to you as a busy and involved university student group leader. And we're also going to give you guys a blueprint, a PDF download that is going to lay it all out for you so that you can take it back to your group and run a successful online pop-up store. And then after that, we're going to take some questions and then we'll be done. So let's go ahead and jump into some quick introductions. My name is Allison Abdelnar, and you can see my co-presenter is John. We've actually both worked with organizations for over 12 years in helping them to raise money and spread their brand awareness, and joined the Ignite CX team just over a year ago. And we're going to tell you all just a little bit more about that at the end of the webinar. But let's go ahead and jump into what we're all here to talk about today. So what is a pop-up store? Well, just as a quick review, originally growing up, you probably saw pop-up stores in the form of seasonal Halloween and Christmas shops that would only be open for maybe 4 or 6 weeks in the year. Since 2009, pop-up stores have become way, way more prevalent because it's proven to be a really effective retail strategy. And then here's just a few more examples that you guys may or may not have seen around. And then I just snapped this quick Google trend just to show you all that it indeed is a growing trend. All right, so let's just quickly talk about how the online version of a pop-up store is the same as a brick and mortar pop-up store. It's a great opportunity to build your brand, your club, or your organization, or your team awareness out in the general public. There is a guarantee of exclusivity built into the nature of a pop-up shop, and consumers love exclusivity. The reason why it's there is because the product is available either for a really limited period of time or the product itself is totally unique. A great low-risk way of learning about your customers. There's also this built-in element of spontaneity and surprise, and that's another thing that customers just love. And you get that opportunity to target niche markets. And then lastly, there is this element of urgency and scarcity. And I want you to really pay attention to those two themes because they are some of the most fundamental ideas that you can understand that are going to help you be really successful with this. What I mean by urgency is that when a pop-up store shows up, people know that it's only going to be there for a very short period of time. And that tends to have a tremendous impact on whether or not they make a purchase. Same thing goes for scarcity. They know that it's a really rare opportunity for them to buy whatever this product is, and they know that they're going to have to act on it in the moment. And those two things are really, really powerful in helping you be successful. Okay, so how is the online version of a pop-up store even better than a brick and mortar version? Well, it's perfect for busy people. The great thing about it is you don't have to commit to a lot as you would if you were opening a brick and mortar shop. The technology can do most of the work for you, and that really just comes down to what platform you choose to use. There is extremely low risk. In fact, I personally would say that there is scenarios where you can set up an online pop-up shop where there is basically no risk. And we're going to tell you guys how you can do that. The only risk that there will be is going to be to the amount of time that you put into it. So it's a great opportunity to try this type of thing out. There's no inventory concerns if you so choose. So, you could decide to start an online pop-up shop and sell baked goods. In that case, you would be responsible for creating that inventory, storing that inventory, and fulfilling those orders. But there are things that you can choose to sell where basically somebody else will do all of that for you. It requires skills that you already have. I can guarantee you that you are already practicing just about everything that you need to be able to do in order to pull this off. And lastly, I have one more way that the online version of the pop-up shop is way better than a brick and mortar version, but I'm going to come back to that later. So how do we bring the pop-up shop online, and what does that mean when it is online? Well, for starters, it's a standalone retail page. It's not a full website. It's literally just one page where your customer comes to see everything that you have to offer. You're also going to have a very limited number of product offerings. We actually recommend that you only sell anywhere from 1 to 3 products. And that is going to depend on the size of your organization as well as the size of your list, your influence, the people that you can bring to your store. But it's really important that you make sure that you start small and grow into more if you have that capacity. It's also important to realize that it has to be available for a very short period of time. Anything from like a 24 to 48 hour flash sale through maybe 3 weeks maximum. Again, you want that scarcity. You want a very limited period of time where people can come and get what you have to offer. And then after that, it's no longer available. It's also really important that you have a very specific goal and story. You've got to know who you are, why you're doing what you're doing, and why you're raising this money. And it's really important that you share that story because that actually turns into a huge selling point for people. You're inviting them in to something that's very personal and meaningful for you, and that in turn affects them to the point where they want to support you. So we're going to shift gears for just a brief moment and we're going to talk about crowdfunding. And I'm sure that most of you all have a really good idea of what this is. But for those of you who don't, basically what happens is it's where people come together online to support a cause. And the main driving force behind why it works is because crowdfunding uses social velocity. It uses sharing on social platforms with bigger and bigger groups of people, an idea that really resonates with people. And so they want to come, they want to participate, they want to support in that idea. And there are a lot of platforms out there that you guys are probably familiar with. You can use it to raise money for a new product or company. You can raise money for disaster relief. You can raise money pretty much for anything. So is crowdfunding effective? Well, in 2010, it was about an $880 million industry. Just 4 years later, it had turned into a $16 billion industry. And then just 1 year after that, it had doubled to $34 billion. So yes is the answer. Crowdfunding is hugely effective. It uses the power of the influence of one person to the next. It's social proof. It's saying, I really value this idea. I want to share it with other people, and that gets other people excited about it and wanting to participate. So when you combine this leveraged social velocity of crowdfunding as a strategy, as a technique, as an approach, with the really powerful retail strategy of the pop-up store, you get a combination that is magical. And that combination is the online pop-up store. So these elements work together with online technology and the human tendency to want to participate in what is spontaneous and urgent and important, and to not miss out. So what does all of this mean for you? I am now going to pass the mic over to John, and he is going to give you guys some ideas moving forward.
Thank you, Allison. So we just want you to think about a few really important things before you dive into building the site and all that kind of stuff. The reason that we're here today is to introduce you to an approach for raising money for your group. All the things that Allison has said so far are important to understanding the what and the why of online pop-ups and how those can really help your group. I'm going to talk about the how you execute that part. But before I do, I wanted to give you a little bit more perspective on what this can do for you. So the company that Allison and I work for, it provides a platform for creating online pop-up stores. And we've seen a lot of really successful campaigns and a lot of really unsuccessful campaigns. So we want to put you in that successful category. So the first question you really want to ask yourself is, what is the purpose and the story of your group? That may seem like a really basic question, but when you get down to it, this fundamental question is critical to deciding what kind of story you're going to run. What is the purpose of your group getting together? Is it just a social thing? Do you like to just have fun and get together in a social way? Is it to raise awareness about social issues, like bigger world issues, things like that? Is it to gain skills? Is it to be involved with a sport where you're practicing new skills? Once you have this idea clearly defined in your head of who you are and what the money would be used for, what the story is of your group, then you can decide what is the purpose of your fundraiser. So where is that money going to go to? Is it going to go to like a big social event where you guys just go have fun? Are you going to be donating that money to a larger social cause? Or are you going to be buying new equipment for your team or your club? So hopefully all that makes sense. And once you have a clear idea of what your answers are to those questions above, only then may you continue to build your store and build your products and all that. So let's talk a little bit about what you need to make this work. First of all, a great product. That's pretty self-explanatory. The platform that we work for, Ignite CX, uses items like promotional items like t-shirts and water bottles and things like that. So I'm going to use an example of a t-shirt, and mine is a cool Star Turtles t-shirt, and I know you want one. Okay, so second thing, we want a really easy platform for you to use. We don't want you monkeying around, wasting your time learning this thing. It needs to be super easy and quick. Don't forget about the licensing of your school. Anytime your product is going to have your school's name or logo on it, you're going to have to think about licensing. We can talk more about that later. Easy way to collect money. Make sure that you're able to collect credit cards. Otherwise, you're going to be wandering around trying to locate, track down checks and keep track of cash, that kind of thing. It's just a real pain. Then you need an amazing team. This is like your superhero team. If you don't have a great team built, you're destined for failure for one of these things. You cannot do this well by yourself. You really need to spread out the work to other people. And you also need a fantastic marketing plan. How are you going to get the word out there? And actually, we've come up with a plan for you, so you don't even have to think about it. So really, all you have to do is follow these steps in the blueprint, and you will achieve success. I guarantee it. There is a link up in the top in the chat box. Go ahead and click on that link. You'll download the blueprint, and then just follow those steps in there, and you will have a wonderful campaign. Let's talk about that a little bit more, though. Let's think about the plan that we need to create to get the word out. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is really get a commitment from your club members. They need to be able to help you not only create the store, but hey, at a bare minimum, buy a t-shirt. So this commitment to buy a shirt, that needs to happen right at the launch point of this pop-up store. As soon as you click go on the webpage, they need to be ready with their credit cards in hand to buy a shirt. The reason for that is you're going to gain a lot more social momentum. It becomes a social tidal wave. The other thing you want them to do is comment on your site. You want them to leave a positive comment about the group, about how excited they are, about the pop-up store itself. Get them excited, get them to leave a comment. That's going to be really helpful for your social proof. And not only that, but it adds credibility to the group itself and to your mission, to what you're trying to do. The next thing you want them to commit to is to share on their social networks. Get the word out. Use Facebook, use Instagram, use Snapchat. Tell people about this link and get them driving people to your online pop-up store. The third thing you want them to do, ask them to commit to reaching out directly to friends and family. This means email. This means text messages. This means personal phone calls. Then it just becomes a numbers game. The more people out there that understand your cause, that understand your club, the more people that are going to support you. It's as simple as that. Okay, let's talk about the follow-up really quick. Make sure, this is mission critical, make sure you say thank you to your supporters. They will feel appreciated. They will be your biggest #1 supporters, your biggest fans from here on out. You can do this via text message. You can do it via email. You can even write a handwritten note if you really want to blow their minds, but make sure you do it. Secondly, you really want to collect the data that you're receiving. So make sure you're getting those emails, make sure you're getting the social media followers, and creating a big list. This is how you're going to reach out to these supporters in the future. Also, take really good notes. As you go through your first campaign, you're going to learn a lot. Make sure you take notes, the good and the bad and the ugly, for next time. So here it is, the moment you've been waiting for. Now it is time for us to present our challenge to you. Dun, dun, dun. Launch your first pop-up store within the next 2 weeks. Why 2 weeks, you ask? Well, here's a couple of things that we want you to think about moving forward from here. First off, your first campaign is going to be the hardest one. You really need to commit to this and get this first campaign under your belt. You're going to actually see how easy and how much fun it is, and you'll realize what a big asset this is for you moving forward in the future. We also know that a lot of you won't ever do this unless you get this done in the next 2 weeks. That's just a fact of life. A lot of people out there won't even try this because they're afraid of failure or they're afraid of the unknown. I don't think you guys are either of those things. I would say give it a shot. The point is there's no risk. You guys aren't going to be incurring any financial risk. The only risk to you right now is a small amount of time commitment. That's truly it. So there's actually no reason for you to sit on the sidelines anymore. I do realize, by the way, that I have dropped a very significant challenge in your laps. And you might be going, all right, well, this is going to be impossible for me or whatever. So two things about that. I just think that the challenge here is much, much easier than you actually think. And I think that you guys are well equipped to make this kind of thing happen, especially given the fact that we've given you these really, really great tools. The tools are built into the system. I mean, really, all you do is follow the steps in the designer and you're creating these great pop-up stores. And then all you do is follow the steps that I've outlined in that blueprint that I showed you up in that chat box. If you grab that blueprint and you follow every single step in there, you will find, and they're very simple steps, you will find that your pop-up store is going to be extremely effective. And so I don't think this is as hard as you think. I think you guys can really go for it and have a great go of it. Okay, so why in the world do we call this a money machine? The word machine kind of gives this idea of sort of a perpetual thing going on in the background. Well, here's the deal. You're going to start with your first pop-up store campaign, and you're going to be pretty darn successful at it, is my belief. If you follow the steps in the blueprint and you follow the steps on the website, you'll be able to crank out a really nice first campaign. The great thing about it is you can plan to run more campaigns in a year. You don't have to just stick to one pop-up store. The cool thing is you can tie those things to seasonal events like Halloween and Christmas and homecoming. And you're really going to start to see that you can ask your supporters for different things throughout the year in different ways. Now, if 2 to 4 events sounds pretty extreme or pretty difficult, like you're feeling pretty burdened by that, here's a couple things to remember. That first pop-up store is going to be the hardest. It really will, because it's the learning curve. You're going to figure some things out. But if you take that knowledge that you learned from the first pop-up store and you apply it to your next pop-up store, you're going to find that it gets much, much easier. I also think if you treat your supporters right and you're thanking them and you're reaching out to them, plus you're designing cool things that are going to be seasonal and different for each pop-up store that you do throughout the year, I think you're going to find that it's actually a lot of fun and you're just going to get into it and start really enjoying popping out these stores and feeling the support from your supporters and really being effective with your fundraising for your club or organization. Make sure you're building your list of supporters. Like we said, you're saying thank you to these guys. You're reaching out and saying, hey, we really appreciate you, and next time we do one of these, we expect you'll be there for us as well. And then also make sure you're honoring those key principles that Allison talked about, the key principles of the pop-up shop. So keep it short, keep the items in there down to a minimum, and really focus the attention on 1 or 2 things. And then the next pop-up store you're going to run, maybe you'll have some different ideas actually from your supporters that say, hey, why don't you try this type of item next time? Or why don't you do this one? So make sure you're honoring those principles of the pop-up shop. And then lastly, be willing to learn from your efforts. Write down the great things that you did and write down the things that you'd like to change for the next time. Those notes will be invaluable when you launch your next pop-up store. Okay, time to get a little serious, you guys. There are some pretty significant pitfalls that we want to warn you about and that you really want to be thinking about before you launch your first pop-up store. Okay, the first one to really be concerned about is sales tax. Even if you're setting up a table and a tent somewhere on your campus and selling some t-shirts to passerbys, chances are you are required to report that sales tax, and if you're not, you could have a surprise knock at your door one day from the tax man. And that's not a very pleasant visit, I assure you. So as I mentioned before, if you're using your university name or logos on that particular item that you're selling, you've got to make sure that that design goes through licensing first. Licensing is a great way for your school to maintain control over their brand. So it's actually a really great service that they're offering to your school but if you don't follow their guidelines, it's a sure thing that they'll shut you down very, very quickly. So really make sure that licensing is given you approval before you continue on with your pop-up store. In most scenarios, you're going to need to set up a credit merchant account. This just allows you to take credit cards. And in order to run one of these online pop-up stores, you're going to have to accept credit cards. And so one of the biggest pitfalls is student groups don't think about this with enough time to get that credit merchant account created before they launch their pop-up store. The other thing you need to keep in mind is if your group does not have its own checking account associated with your group, then you may not even be able to get a credit merchant account in the first place. So another big pitfall that I see a lot of student groups doing is they're not using licensed vendors to produce their items. This is something that's really, really important. And again, it ties into that licensing part of the equation. If you get your t-shirts printed at a vendor that's not licensed, again, I'm sure that your licensing director of your school will hear about it, and they'll shut down your pop-up store and make sure that all the items that you've sold so far are collected and destroyed. So make sure that that's on your checklist. And lastly, do you have a good plan? You know, of the pop-up stores that fail, most of them, the majority of them, is due to the fact that they weren't planning ahead. They didn't make proper preparations to launch their pop-up store. So I'm going to revisit one of our old slides, and with your permission, I'd like the opportunity just to talk to you a little bit about the company that we work for and about how the platform that we offer is actually taking care of all of these needs for you automatically. So first of all, a great product. Within our platform, there's a design tool, and you'll be able to easily create these really great designs that you can put into your pop-up store. Is it an easy platform to use? Yes. There's actually only 5 steps that you need to do between starting your page and having your page launched. And literally all it is filling in the blanks and putting up some photographs and things like that. The licensing part of it is actually handled for you automatically, so you don't even need to think about it. Once you decide upon a design, you'll actually click on a button that requests approval directly from within our system to your licensing department. And then it's just done for you automatically. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we do work with a licensed vendor, and it's a big one, Promoversity, and they're the ones that supply all those goods for you, and they are licensed with all the universities and colleges throughout the country. You don't have to set up any payment gateway. That happens for you automatically. And so all you have to do is decide whether you want that money directly deposited or to have a check sent to you at the end of your pop-up store. Now, when I was talking about an amazing team before, I meant your team, but actually I can apply this to our side of things as well. If you decide to get a pop-up store going with the Ignite CX team, you'll be sure to have a lot of support as you go through not only the design process of your items, but through any of the technical support you might need as you continue on. Well, we already talked about the blueprint for success. I hope you guys have clicked up there by now and downloaded it. I think it'll be really helpful to you. And lastly, a sales tax solution. Here's the magic bit, you guys. We collect and report sales tax on all items sold through our system, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, and here we have a great looking example of a pop-up store page. And you can see here, it's the University of Iowa Swimming and Diving Team. They created a pop-up store using our software. And not only are they creating a place where people can go and buy items that supports their team, but they've also created a bit of an identity page. By that I mean they've created a page that is geared towards their team. They've placed images and videos that give the page the personality that that team is looking for. They've also changed the colors and added a logo and added some text that really gives them a sense of identity on this page. This is what the pop-up store itself looks like. I've highlighted a section that actually displays the products. These products were created inside of our store creator. If you want to learn more, there's plenty of examples on our website, so you can take a look at some of the other schools out there that are doing great pop-up stores. So you guys, just to recap, we already talked about how brilliantly pop-up stores work and how well crowdfunding pages work. So let's do the smart thing. Let's combine them, stick them online in a really easy to build page, and that way your club or organization can make money very quickly and very easily. It just seems like the right thing to do, don't you think? Be the hero of your club. Now, I say this and you think, oh, is he saying it tongue in cheek? Well, no. You really will be bringing a lot of value to your club or organization if you're able to set up one of these great pop-up stores and show your club how easy it is to raise money for all the goals that you guys have, all the things that you want to do. Think of how many doors that this can open for you. So go ahead, be the hero of your club, get one of these things going, and show your club what you're all about. So here we are. If you'd like to take advantage of our system and create your pop-up store in 5 really, really easy steps, just highlight this link and stick it in your browser and get going. It's going to be up in the chat box there. There's no subscriptions or anything to worry about, and all you do literally is just sign up and you can start creating your page right then and there. You design your items and you're on your way in minutes. So go for it, you guys. Have fun, get this pop-up store thing created, and I think you're gonna really find how powerful it is for you and your organization. So guys, it looks like we're a little bit over on our time, so we're just gonna do a couple questions and answers. If we don't get to your question right now, feel free to email us that question and we will get back to you as soon as humanly possible. So first question here from James. Have you ever seen a pop-up store majorly fail? The question behind your question is probably why do they fail? And we talked a little bit about that in the webinar. I'm going to use this question to strongly encourage you to download that blueprint and really follow it to a T. The reason that most of these fail is going to be that marketing piece. So really take advantage of all that great information that we gave you and follow it, and you will have a great, successful pop-up store.
Okay, so Kenley asks, how long does the setup take? And that is a really great question. I have seen people set up a pop-up shop from start to launch within 2 business days. And that usually is the case with somebody who is very organized. They already have an idea of what they want their t-shirt to look like, and they've already got all of their pieces together as far as photos of their group and their story and things like that. It's important to build in time for the licensing process. The licensing approval process can take anywhere from 1 to, say, 5 business days. And when it's more than 1 business day, that's usually because the licensing department has things that they want you to actually change on your design. And that's not unusual. So make sure that you are prepared for that. But other than that part of it, if you already have a collection of photos, 5 or 10 great photos, you've got a video you can link to, and you already have a pretty clear idea of what your story is, you can actually get the rest of the site set up in 20 minutes or under. So it's actually a really fast process. All right, we have a question from Katie. How do I get access to my school logo? That is a really, really great question. The answer is, if you use our system, you already have access to it. And what's really great is our system comes preloaded with all of the pre-approved logos for your school. If for some reason the logo you want is not already loaded in the system, just shoot us an email and we will get it to you very, very quickly. But do make sure that you're not downloading a logo from Google or something like that and then uploading it into the system. You're going to get through licensing much more quickly if you use the logos that are already there. Okay, and so that is all we've got for today. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope that you will take us up on our challenge and that you have fantastic success with your very first pop-up shop.